Reverend Connie, because she is someone who I admire so much for her courage. She went to Africa to start a center. She just inspires me. And our speaker today is Reverend Connie.
Good morning. Good morning. So let's just take a moment. Okay, let's take a moment to just go within and do what we always do to start a day. And that's to do spiritual mind treatment. For those of you that are new, it is our form of affirmative prayer. So I invite you, if these words feel right for you, to embody them, embrace them as your words. So join with me. As we know and remember, there's only one. There's only one life. That life is God's life. There's only one power. That power is God's power. There is only one presence, and the presence is God. So I know for each and every one of us that that power, that presence, and that life lives itself by means of us. That there is a power that lives and knows itself by means of us in the world as we step out into our experience and into our expression and into that life, as we live every moment fully, completely, and joyously, knowing that we have, right where we are, everything necessary for the greatest fulfillment of that life by means of us. So I know that we are here this morning in the right place at the right time, knowing what we need to know, revealing what we need to reveal, so I know that all is well. And I am just so grateful for this life. I am so grateful for this center. I am so grateful for Reverend Tim, Reverend Catherine, Reverend Val, each one of the practitioners, each one of my beautiful friends that make this such a warm and welcoming and loving place as I come back into this home, and I call it home, and know it is good and very good. So we are so blessed to have this place. And I just say thank you. Releasing my word, knowing that all is good. I let it be so. And together we say, and so it is. So, I just have to look at everybody because you're so beautiful. So I want to start my talk. My talk is called Honoring Our Roots. And I want to start my talk by honoring Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. And he was the founder of this teaching. And this quote is from a talk that he gave as the principal speaker of the dedication of the First Church of Religious Science back in February of 1959. Here's what he said, part of his talk. He said, "It is our endeavor through our educational system to teach people what this principle is and how to use it. It is not our endeavor to convert anybody to our faith. It is to prove something. It is to prove something, first to ourselves, then to the world. And we have no authority before the world and ask for none and will never have, I hope, other than the authority of the work that follows the word." And I read that quote again yesterday, and I thought that fits so well with the experience that I have been having. So it's been 9 years since the first time I first went to Kenya. So many of you know my story well because, I keep coming back here to this home and sharing my learning and my growth and the stories. But over the last almost 10 years that I've been ministering in Kenya, there seems to be a theme. Have you ever noticed your life has a theme? So my theme has been exactly that. My theme, because I first entered this teaching in January of 1992, so do the math, that was a while ago. And my theme, particularly when I started going to Kenya, was to prove, and of course there's nobody else to prove it to but me, that what we teach is really the truth. And when I was first called to go to Kenya, that's really what convinced me to take that first step. Vicki talked about courage. Well, I didn't feel very courageous, I gotta tell you, when I made that first step. But the question I asked myself at that time I had been teaching for about 15 years, and I thought, if what I have been teaching all of this time is really true, why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do that? So I did. And the entire journey has been about proving to myself over and over again that we indeed live in a friendly universe. We indeed are immersed in the principle and the presence, and there really is a power that is working through that. And so, I don't know, sometimes I think I'm a bit of a slow learner, because, you know, anybody else, I mean, I can't be the only one. Oh, good. Really glad about that. Because I keep attracting to myself experiences that suggest that I don't really believe it. Because really, if that were true, why is this happening? Do you ever ask yourself that? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. So Holmes said, you are never limited by the principle of your being. Limitation is a result of a limited use of principle. I'll say that again. Limitation is a result of limited use of principle. We are never limited by the truth of our being. That is the root of who we are. Anything other than that is to believe that something else is true. To believe that maybe there's another power that might be at work that isn't that. That maybe there's something else going on that really isn't that. But the truth is, when we come back to the roots of our being, we can't get rid of it. It is within us. The truth is, right where we are, God is. Always. So we come then to one conclusion, that there is something which honors our belief, not in a big way in one place, in a little way in another. Rather, it honors our belief as we believe it. It honors us by manifesting and demonstrating in our lives the level of our belief. Always. So the negative use of this creative power of thought, then, is a very real thing. It's not an illusion. We manifested it. It's as real as it is. And that is what is at the root of every challenge. So all forms of fear, and I love Johnny's meditation. He spoke to exactly, if you were here during it, what I'm talking about. This journey from fear to faith. All forms of fear are rooted in one fundamental negation. We do not know that we belong in the universe in which we live. That's at the root of everything. We do not know that. We do not believe that with every fiber of our being. So he goes on to say, we do not realize that God needs us, or we wouldn't be here. You are here because God is experiencing and expressing itself by means of you. So you're necessary. You're necessary to be your authentic self of who you truly are. So the last few months, as many of you know already, it's been a bit of a journey. And I got to tell you, nobody was more surprised than I was when I got the diagnosis. It was shocking. That's mild. It was a little shocking. So being a good metaphysician, as all good metaphysicians do, if we truly believe that there is only one power in the universe and that power is good, that means everything is good. Everything is good. We call it bad, we call it a challenge, we call it whatever, but the truth is, everything is good. So I've been asking myself that. Okay, so if that is true, then what about this is good? So I keep asking me that question. Why am I having this experience? And not from a place of victimization about why me, but from a place of saying, if everything that happens for a reason, which I believe is true. Anybody, do you believe that's true? Everything. Everything. That means this too has something good. So I've been asking myself that question. So a couple of things have come up. And one of them is, before I started treatment, I had a real aversion to chemo. I had an aversion to it because I realized that I had a belief that chemo meant chemical and chemical meant synthetic, and it wasn't natural. Because I also have another belief that God, or the universe, has provided absolutely everything for our healing. So those two things sort of didn't line up for me. But I was in such a state at that time that really I needed to do something quickly to just stop what was going on so I could reassess my life. And so the very first day I was sitting in the chair, and the nurse that was giving the chemo started telling me, she said, so, did you know that one of the drugs that we're administering for you comes from the yew tree? And I went, that's it. That's it. That's what has been given for me. And so I did some research about that, and I found something out that I thought was fascinating. I found out the yew tree, now some of you may know this, the yew tree is an ancient sacred tree that predominantly grows in Europe, and often they're found in churchyards. And so many people think, if you travel to Europe, that the trees were planted in the churchyard. But it's actually not true, because these trees often, apparently they think, like some of them could be centuries old. That's how old these trees are. They have been growing there forever. And all the way back to, the days of the Druids, and these have been known as a sacred tree. So actually, the churches were built where the trees were, because it was already considered sacred ground. So then I decided, okay, I did a bit more research, and the yew tree is the tree that is known as the tree for life. And I thought, that's it. That's the good. So I found that bit of good. And then I continued on, and I got another answer. Now, what I've realized over the years is, I'll speak to Kenya, because that's where I'm at, is very, very immersed in superstition. And one of the beliefs is that cancer is a death sentence. So as soon as you say that C word, well then, that's it. So I believe what came to me, one of the answers I got, and I'm going to really invite you to hold this as true for me, is that I'm having this experience, so it's going to be like my miracle story. Now I know we don't need miracles. I know we don't believe in miracles, because miracles are really nothing more than the natural way that the universe works. Except for most of us, we're not using it the way it's meant to be worked in its true essence. And so we have experiences that are other than that. And when we have a healing, often we're shocked and we're amazed because it's not natural to us. But it is the most natural thing that can ever happen. It is the way the universe works when we allow it to work. So this is going to be my miracle story. So I invite you to hold that as true for me. So that when I go back to Kenya, they can look at me and go, oh, that is not a true story. The story that they believe, that there is another story. So that's part of that. Story. So then the question becomes, what roots are we honoring? If we use the yew tree analogy, it obviously has some pretty deep roots. If it's, many of them survived for centuries, there's got to be some really deep roots there. But we all have roots. So where are our roots? Are our roots in fear? They're still roots. Or are our roots in faith? Are our roots securely, sorry, some of my words seem to leave me, securely. So, Jamie, you're not the only one, that has, there you are, Jamie. Bless you for that. My words seem to leave me on a regular basis. So, what what roots do you honor in your life? When fear comes up, do you honor that and follow down the road of fear, which is really, proving that that's true? Or do you step into what we know to be true? The faith that all is well. And this too is good. Whatever this too is, that this too is good. Holmes says, if fear is contagious, faith is even more so. Because it is more natural to have faith than to be afraid. Did you know that? It's actually more natural to have faith. Being afraid is not our natural state of being. We have roots deep within us, which is the presence and the power of God. That is the truth of our being. Those are our we can't uproot them. We cannot get rid of them. They are part of who we are. So do we trust that? Do we go back and honor the roots of our faith? So he says we can never believe that a negative viewpoint has the same power as a positive one, any more than we can believe that darkness can obliterate light. It is the light that destroys the darkness, and we must see to it that our consciousness is filled with light. Fear is a habit of thought and creates a subconscious mental pattern which repeats itself with monotonous regularity. Anybody notice that? Man, they just repeat on autopilot often until the light of truth displaces that fear with faith. We have to go back to the roots of our being. This too is God. This too is good. Faith, on the other hand, rightly cultivated, will repeat itself with buoyant regularity. Both fear and faith are habits of thought and can be cultivated. Which roots are you cultivating? Which roots do you rely on to be the truth of your being? So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And I'm going to talk about, as many of you know, my biggest passion, which are the students in Kenya. And I want to tell you a little bit about them because these people inspire me every day. Every day, the stories that they share about their lives and how they are embracing the principle and the power that we're talking about. And they use it in the middle of circumstances that are often beyond anything that any one of us sitting here has ever experienced or could even imagine experiencing. And they have such deep roots in faith. It continues to inspire me how quickly they uproot those old beliefs in fear and embrace the truth. They embrace it with such authority and conviction that it inspires me continually. So Kenya is really taking root, and it is expanding and exploding so much in the past year. Last year, I had an average of about 40 students a week coming through classes through my home, because I've been teaching out of my home up until now, that it became pretty apparent that it was time to do something differently, that I needed to separate the center from my home. So just a few days before I left to come here this year, everything kind of blew up, and it was another one of those moments that went, oh man, as if the diagnosis wasn't enough, and now I'm losing, my home is going, and the center's home, and all of this supposed chaos was happening. But in the moment of it, I just went, okay, maybe it was good I couldn't deal with it. I just said, no, this is good. Whatever happens is good. Within like 2 days, the perfect place for the center to move into showed up. And so August 1st, they moved into a new home. And it's a beautiful place. It's in the middle of this lovely garden with grass and trees, and there's a yoga studio on one end of the property, and we have this beautiful place. They've been sending me pictures. And so it's a lovely place. And so everything happens for a reason. So that too happened for a reason. because what has happened is the students, how they're stepping into their ownership of the center over this, because I'm not there, beautiful, beautiful to withhold. So that's one of the things that happened that was just great. And so remember, some of you might have been here last year and remember that I'd been talking about just getting ready to start a teen group when I went back. Well, I got to tell you what an absolute success that was. So one of the things we had to do differently, because most of the Kenyan students go to boarding schools. And so they're gone like for 3 months at a time, and then are home for a month, and then gone another 3 months, and that's how the cycle goes. So on the months that they're at home, we've been having teen group for a full day. So I have them all day long. And so we did that for 7 weeks in December, and then another 5 weeks in April. We had them again. Had an average of 12 teens show up every week for a full day. They love it. And these were teens that had never heard other than from their parents. Most of them, or some of them also came from the Britain School where I do work, but many of them were teens of the students, the adult students, and it was actually them that wanted the teen group, and the parents came to me and said, you know, my kids want something, and they had never met each other. Well, they have developed such incredible bonds. They keep saying, but it's August, it's time for our classes, and I'm not there. They're actually missing not being there. They loved it so much that when I started doing the adult Science of Mind classes, 4 of them from there were coming to classes, and one of the teens, so this year, I had 3 different groups come over from North America to visit the work that I'm doing in Kenya. And one of them, there was a teen from the Denver area, and so we went on a trip with 4 of the teens from our teen group, from the local teen group, and her and a few adults, and we were gone for 9 days. It was amazing, amazing experience. But these teens all loved it so much that they went into the adult classes, including the teen from Denver that gets up at 3 a.m. every Saturday morning to go on Zoom to join the class. Now, do you know any teens that would commit to getting up at 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning every week? That's the difference that this makes in people's lives. And I've realized it's not just making a difference in the lives of the Kenyans that I'm teaching, it makes a difference in everybody's lives. It was so amazing to have these groups come over to visit this year, and it was so incredible, not just for them, but also for the other students from Kenya, the people from North America. It was such an amazing experience. So we had the group of teens come over, and we did this 9-day tour. We went on a safari to the Masai Mara. And none of the Kenyan teens had ever seen the animals in their own country alive. They'd never, can you imagine? In their own country, they'd never been. It was profound. We went up country, they call it up country, up to the remote area where I've got some students that I've traveled to over the years to teach. And we did a couple of service projects up there. We went to the boys' home in Kisi, which you probably heard me talk about before, those that have heard me talk before, that there's a group there where a friend of mine rescues teens that are homeless living in the garbage dump. And he brings them, they have a home that they bring them to, and they send them to school, and they get help and off of the drugs, and they get the medical help that often they need, and all of these things. So we went there and we did a group project with them, and so their teens, it was awesome. So their teens don't speak English. My teens from Kenya don't speak Kisi, which is the language that they speak up there. And then, of course, the girl from North America, the teen from here didn't speak any of it. So it was an amazing experience to watch these kids bond together that day. We painted one of their buildings. We made lunch together, or the teens did. I just watched. And they spent a whole day together. At the end of the day, the tears, we couldn't part them. And yet, they didn't communicate with words. Love transcends everything. It was such an amazing experience to be a part of. Then we continued on and did another project at an orphanage way up in the mountains. And this orphanage, as many in that area has been so devastated by HIV/AIDS. There's still so much superstition that is around about that. So we went to this orphanage and we started building a kitchen for them, a new kitchen. So you must just paint a picture here for you. A kitchen means it was outside and it was a few brick walls with tin and a pit in the middle of the ground where they cook on. But we were digging holes and we were supplying the materials that they needed to build a kitchen. So we did that experience. And then some of the teens, we had brought face paints with us. And we were painting their faces. You should have seen them. Something so simple made such a difference in these kids' lives that they never would have experienced. And so the third project was back in Nairobi at the Britain Science and Mind Slum School, where I've been working for many years, teaching science and mind classes at the school. The school is growing and expanding. The school would be the entire school would be less in size than this room. And it's now 2 stories. We built on one half of it. Last year we built a second story. 280 students. Wow. From baby class, they start going at 3 to class 8. So some of them are like 15, 16 years old, depending on, when they started school. So we went there and we just, had a bunch of supplies that I had taken over, and they had brought a bunch more with them to build a creative arts room at the school. And so we had this room upstairs and we put all of this stuff together with all of these creative things like paints and drawing paper and just all kinds of crafts we put in there. The kids love it, but the amazing piece of that, then we realized that we had to teach the teachers how to use them. They'd never seen this stuff before. They didn't know how to use half of the things that we put in this room. So it's a continual process of teaching the teachers about the stuff that we brought. So a couple weeks later, after we'd done this room, they had a government official come out to have a look at what we were doing at the school. And apparently I wasn't there that day, but the woman said, "Imagine a Montessori school in the slum." I gotta tell you, that's gotta be a first. So if you think that what we're doing doesn't make a difference, I'm here to tell you it does. Because last year we also, remember the pencil project, and we're gonna do that again before I go back this year. But a lot of the pencils that went there, you should have seen these kids. It was like Christmas. They each got their own pencil. And so part of that in the creative arts room and the crafts and the money that you donate, the work that is doing is just amazing. Then in February, another group came, led by Reverend Trish Hull from Washington, D.C., and a group of her people. We did the same trip in reverse, went in on all of did more service projects, built another, because they brought a bunch more supplies, built another creative arts room. So we have 2 now, one upstairs for the older kids and separated the stuff, another one downstairs for the younger kids. It's amazing what a little bit of ingenuity can do. Then the last group came in March, led by Sarah Awad. She's the one, you may have seen an article in the Science of Mind magazine a couple years ago. Wrote that article. So she came over with a bunch of her, because she was in year 2, practitioner studies, and my students, I had a group of 5 students in Prac 2 studies in Kenya. So those students and my students, we did a practitioner retreat. And we rented a house on the ocean. And it was so profound. At the end of the practitioner retreat, I asked them to go around, what was most meaningful of this time together. And both the students from the US and the students from Kenya said the most amazing thing for them was to spend time together and realize we truly are all one. Everybody has the same problems. Might be at different levels, different extremes, but that was what they took away. We truly are all one. Then in April, I was invited to go back up country in the city near where the orphanage is. There was a woman in Oakland, California, a Science of Mind student, that had been going to Kenya for several years. She has a project there working with HIV/AIDS, and she's been doing this for 9 or 10 years, about the same length of time I've been going to Kenya, but she didn't know I was there. 2 years ago, she took the executive director, got him a visa to get out of Kenya, which is no small feat, and took him to California to take foundations class, not knowing that I was in Kenya. So now that she knows I'm there, they're flying me, and it's like a 10-hour drive one way to get there. It's a long ways. Well, distance-wise, it may be not long. Traveling time, it's a long ways to get there. But they're flying me up there every 2 weeks to teach Science of Mind classes to their entire team. Isn't that amazing? We're growing and expanding in such marvelous, marvelous ways. So I could go on and on and on about the stories. If you want to hear more stories, come talk to me, because I've got a lot of them, and I love talking about the stories of what's going on. But I just want to say, in your, today you were handed a full sheet of paper that looks like this. And this is a suggested experiment from 1942. This was written by Dr. Ernest Holmes during World War II. And I think it's relevant today with what's going on in many of our lives, what's going on in the world. This is an experience of really taking an opportunity to daily, there's a affirmative prayer in there, and I'm inviting you to all stand in faith with me and hold this truth together, that we know that we are alive with life, with joy, and continuously upheld by a deep, unshakable conviction that there is a presence and a power and an intelligence in the universe, and that good is finally coming to everyone, and that all problems will be solved. And so it is.
So it is.